let's ask this question. When is participating in research, and let's use a clinical trial as the default here. When is it right, to participate? How do you know? What are some of your your input on this? I know, Deb, you had mentioned a couple earlier. Go ahead.
So when I was asked, it was my rheumatologist was asking me to become part of a clinical trial for a new medication that was coming out. And I went home and talked to my husband about it and we decided, I'm not going to poke the bear. I'm actually in really decent shape right now with a given medication I'm on right now. I didn't want to. So that was an informed decision that my husband and I talked about and went back and just let the doctor know that, no, I don't think this is a good time for me, as far as my walk of life at that point.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I think, especially in our diseases, it's going to be different. Whatever
Yes.
conditions you have, if the reason for participating in a trial will vary.
Mhm.
And for us, it's probably to achieve continuity of care. So if you already have continuity of care, it's not usually going to be something recommended. So
Right.
access to treatment, you've tried everything, or maybe you're in the process of shifting, something's not working. That's also a potentially good time, but it's very, very important to speak with your doctor, and if in a process that we call shared decision making, where you can weigh the pros and the cons for your individual situation and see if this is something that might be right for you. Because somebody mentioned it earlier, what's called a placebo. And that's how in the studies that are seeing the efficacy or how well a treatment works, they're testing it against people who actually aren't on it. And they don't know they're not on it. That's what the placebo is. So you could be in a arm or a section who was just randomly chosen not to actually be on something. Now, I do want to make sure that everyone knows, if that does happen, there are safety precautions put into place on these trials where they're not going to let you flare for the duration. If it seems that you're going in a wrong direction, or you're not doing so well, they will remove you. They will. Sometimes there's like a little safety where you could possibly go on the medication. So that's something you just need to talk to your doctor, because they're all designed differently. And then there's some that are comparison from one treatment to another, where everybody is pretty much on there. So I just want to mention that. Eileen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons why somebody should and shouldn't get involved in a study. I think there's one that you should ask yourself: am I going to be overwhelmed by this? Do I have too much going on in my life? Is my mental health not doing too good? Is my physical health not doing too good? Can I take this on? Because some studies do have, a lot of involvement, or could just be too overwhelming for somebody. I also think, do they offer an incentive? That is something that makes me want to participate in a study, and shows that it does get more participation. I want to feel valued as a participant. Or, so not all studies do, of course, like some of the surveys don't, but depending on, how much time, how much value, how much expertise I've had to give in, am I going to be compensated for that? Or my time, like travel costs? And do I have a passion for the topic that they're talking about? If it's going to be something that bores me to death, am I going to want to be participating in this? Or is it something that I'm really passionate about, I want answers to, or I want to teach, future healthcare workers about? Those are things that I always think of. And I always think that one of the best times to get involved in research is when you're newly diagnosed, because it can explain so many answers and guide you into ways, finding, proper research, proper information about these conditions, rather than a lot of the contradictory and misinformation you can find on the internet.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to add to that? Recommendations, why or why not? Or go ahead, Deb.
I do have one more point. I've been hemming and hawing thinking about sharing this. So the other reason that was going through the dialogue between my husband and I was, with a clinical trial, I was thinking to myself, okay, so if I was put on this medication and it did work, what happens after the study's over and the medication isn't available to me through my insurance company? That is another reason that kind of made us kind of steer away, because what if I couldn't get that, So
I can tell you that in most clinical trials that the patient will be offered a duration of time to continue on. Now, of course, that's going to change. I'm trying to remember. My gosh, it was so long ago when I was in there. I want to say it was a good 6 months to a year that I was offered to stay on it. But of course, you can't take that as the standard, because every trial is different, right? Yeah. That's just what mine was at the time. But that's a good point. And I think that that's something that at our organization, we should actually look into a little bit more.
And that was something that definitely did affect me, because I'm like, well, what if it does work and then I can't get it? That was like a bit of an apprehension of, again, I value research in every part of this, and clinical trials are so important. So I don't want to diminish anybody's thoughts on thinking about it. It was just one other segment that kind of went through my point of going through with my husband. We just kind of talked through, because again, we had a very long conversation about it. Pros, cons, we kind of listed them up next to each other, all of those things.
Okay. Carrie, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just, kind of building off of, Eileen mentioned, some things to think about. And I think those were things that we wouldn't necessarily think that we need to think about, that like, would this be overwhelming for me? And there are sometimes just logistical reasons why we might not be able to, or might not choose to participate in a trial. If it's conducted in an area that's too far away, if it's, practical details. And, so one of the things that I've been learning about a little more recently is that, there is a move to address this kind of thing in something called decentralized trials. And so what those are is basically it's trying to remove those barriers to access to clinical trials. And whether that means it's done virtually rather than you having to travel somewhere, or different things of how you participate, where you participate, how often you participate, what you actually do, all of those things, and all the reasons why we might want to but not be able to. There is this big movement to try and address that. And of course, there's a long way to go. There always is. But the only way we can get there is by continuing to do this, to learn about these trials, participating in sharing the information, letting everyone know, hey, this is really, really important.